بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله قولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we praise Allah for His many blessings, and inshallah tonight we're going to start a new book, and that book is Kitab Tawheed. And although we started a different version before, but this time inshallah we're going to start with a more concise form, it's not going to be as long-winded as the one we started. This is going to be more short and to the point. And the explanation that we are using is the explanation of our Sheikh Salih Fawzan. Hafidhahullah, may Allah preserve the Sheikh. Ameen. And before we start this class, before we get into class, it's going to be, inshallah, we hope to be that we do it every Mondays and Wednesdays, inshallah. Every Mondays and Wednesdays. And the class is going to be we're going to try to make it conversational. We're going to be exchanging ideas. And inshallah, we can benefit from one another, inshallah, azza wa jal. So we start with the introduction by the permission of Allah, asking Allah's help and His success, His tawfiq, to help us to be able to start this class and to be able to finish it. So Allah azza wa jal, He informs us in His book and upon His tongue of His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that He only created us for one reason, and that reason is to worship Him alone, subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah mentioned, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, I have not created mankind and the jinn except that they worship me alone. I have not created mankind and the jinn except for them to worship me alone. And Allah continues that I do not want any provision from them. I don't want anything from them. But the only thing I'm asking from them is that they worship me alone without associating partners with me. Allah said. And the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal is the meaning of La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. And this is what Allah sent all the messengers from the beginning of time. As we're going to learn from the Kitab Tawheed, when the shirk happened, the first shirk happened during the time of Nuh, alayhi salam. So from that point, all the messengers that came from the time of Nuh to the last of the prophets, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to all of them, they came with La ilaha illallah. We know that the businesses, the companies, when they start their business, they will have a mission statement. They have a mission statement. And the mission statement that Allah sent all the messengers with is La ilaha illallah. As we're going to learn in this chapter. As Allah mentioned, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَيَجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. And we send a messenger. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ أَنَا فَاعْبُدُونِ. That we did not send a messenger before you, Muhammad, except we revealed to them that La ilaha illa ana. No one desires to be worshipped except for me, so worship me. So Allah Azza wa Jal, this worship of Allah, it cannot be correct. It cannot be correct except for two conditions. The worship of Allah is not worship of Allah except that it has, what is it? Ikhlas. Yeah, but there are two pillars. Ikhlas, yes, now. Yes. And the Sunnah. Well, on producer, those are not the pillars, but yeah, you're right. You're right to some extent. But it has to have negation and affirmation. No problem, inshallah, no problem. So it's negation and affirmation. So the pillar of La ilaha illallah is negation, that La ilaha, that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah. None has the right to be worshipped except Allah. So La ilaha, none has the right to worship illallah, which is the affirmation. Except Allah is the affirmation for Allah. So worship is not correct. Worship of Allah is not correct. Many of the Muslims today, they worship Allah, but they do not negate worship from other than Allah. And this is a big problem. And many of the people that are calling the people to Islam, to Allah, they call the people to righteous actions. They call people to Salah. They call people to Zakah. They call people to, fasting in Ramadan. And call people to all the good deeds. But they do not focus on those things that oppose, that negate the worship of Allah. Because worship is not worship, except that worship is done for Allah, and worship is not done for anyone except Allah. So if a person prays and he negates work, he still does other things, he start acting other worship for other than Allah, then that worship, it does not benefit him in a sense. That worship is null and void. It's null and void. So this is what this book that we are going to look at is going to look at. The worship in Allah and those things that negates the worship for Allah Azza wa Jalla. And of course we know also that La ilaha illallah, other names of La ilaha illallah, what are other names of La ilaha illallah? Other names that we know. What are the names that we call La ilaha illallah? There are names for La ilaha illallah. We call it Shahada. Yes, that's one of them. It's also called Tawheed. Kalimat Tawheed, the statement of Tawheed is La ilaha illallah. So when we say La ilaha illallah, another name for it, the statement of Tawheed, or the statement of Ikhlas, and other names. It's also called the statement of Taqwa, and other names that have been mentioned by the scholars. And also we know that Tawheed, as we know that's not, Tawheed is another name for La ilaha illallah. Then Tawheed is divided, as the scholars mentioned, into three categories. Remember that, right? What is the first one? Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And what is that? Just now, to see the Tawheed al-Rububiyyah is to single Allah out for that He is the creator, He is the provider, He is the sustainer. Now, Barakallah fiqh. And the second one is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, and that is what? To sin Allah, all act of worship without making partner with Allah. And the third one is his names and attribute. Now, Tawheed Asma wa Sifat. So this book is focused on the second one. This book, like Kitab Tawheed, is focused on the Tawheed Uluhiyya, to single Allah out for worship. This book is for the second one, and it goes into details. And the second type of Tawheed is also called the Tawheed of worship. The Tawheed of worship. So we start, by the permission of Allah, with the introduction to chapter 1. And chapter 1, the essence of chapter 1 is that it's going to talk about the obligations of Tawheed. Why is Tawheed? Why it is obligatory upon us to worship Allah without associating partners with Allah. So the Sheikh, he brought evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah to prove why it's a must that we must worship Allah without making partner with Him. And why that anyone that worships Allah, but his worship is accompanied with associating partner with Allah, this worship does not benefit him. His worship does not benefit him. So the Shaykh, he started with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it means that, what does it, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim means? In the name of Allah. In the name of Allah. Yes, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most special merciful. That's how it's translated. But when we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Bismillah, we start this for a reason. There's a reason behind it. What are we doing while you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? We ask Allah's help and assistance. Now, and also there's another thing, we are asking Allah to bless what we're about to do. By putting Allah's name first, we're asking Allah to bless what we're about to do. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the most merciful. Ar-Rahman, the scholar says this is the name of Allah. This is the attribute, this name and attribute of Allah. This is the name and attribute of Allah Azza wa Jal. Ar-Rahim, let's say Ar-Rahim means that when Allah actually put these names of that into action, and when Allah uses and He actually have mercy on the person, that is Ar-Rahim. As Allah mentioned regarding Himself, وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا, that Allah, indeed Allah is all merciful to the believers. So whenever you use Ar-Rahim, Allah always uses Ar-Rahim to indicate that He is using this mercy in the Quran. So the Sheikh start with that. Now,
I thought the difference was Rahman is like a general mercy.
now,
And Rahim is like a mercy specific to the believers.
yes, it's true now. Some of the scholars, they translate, they use that as I'm just giving you some of, that's one of the one I mentioned right now is one of the ways some of the scholars explain it. And the way that you mentioned right now is another way that scholars mention as well too now. Right. No. Well, I got a pencil. I got a pencil, inshallah. Now, then use it, inshallah. Well, yeah. So, the author started chapter 1, like I mentioned the obligation of Tawheed. The Shaykh started. Okay, so he says, the Shaykh mentioned, he says the topic of this book The topic of this book is the obligation, is clarifying the obligation of Tawheed, which is the obligation or the right of Allah upon the creation. The right of Allah and the reason why Allah created creation. And the reason why, or clarifying the things that nullifies this worship. So Allah created creation. That is right. That is the right of Allah upon us. That's the right of Allah to worship Him alone, because He's our creator and He's our sustainer, He's our provider. So this book is clarifying those things that negate that worship from major shirk, from the major shirk that takes a person completely outside the fold of Islam. So this book that we're going to get into, it clarifies major shirk that takes a person outside the fold of Islam, and also minor shirk that does not completely take a person outside the fold of Islam, but it weakens a person's tawheed. And some of the things that the Sheikh is going to mention from that is, inshallah, so we're going to get into them. He's going to mention magic. He's going to mention about slaughtering for other than Allah. He's going to mention about seeking rain. He's going to mention about, seeking refuge in Allah. And many other. These chapters that we have in this book, there are 67 chapters. 67 or so chapters. And all of them, they go into details. They go into detail. The scholars have praised this book, that this book is, no one wrote, there's no book that's written in detail of Tawheed like this book. And all praise to Allah for that. So the Sheikh mentioned that this book is clarifying the Tawheed that Allah's, the obligation of Tawheed of Allah, and what negates Tawheed of Allah from major shirk and minor shirk, and also bid'ah, and also innovation that opposes this Tawheed of Allah. Then the Sheikh went to mention the meaning of worship in Arabic language. What is the meaning of worship in Arabic language? Before you get to the worship in Islam, he said, worship is to humiliate yourself. In Arabic, worship means to humiliate yourself and to humble yourself. This is the Arabic language of when we say ibadah means tadallul wal khudu'. Tadallul means to humiliate yourself and to humble yourself. And in Sharia, in Islam, or in Sharia, the Sheikh used the definition of Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, where he defines worship as everything is a comprehensive meaning. It's a general meaning that everything that Allah loves and Allah is pleased with, from statement and action, that whether it's apparent and whether it is hidden. So Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on the Sheikh, he defines worship to mean everything that Allah loves and is pleased with, from statements and actions, whether it is apparent and whether it is hidden. So everything Allah loves and is pleased with, from statements. Example of statements, what are the things that a person can say in repent that Allah loves? La ilaha illallah, saying la ilaha illallah. Now, adhkar. La ilaha illallah, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah. Making istighfar. Now, Astaghfirullah. Naam. Jazakallah khair. What else? Other things. Enjoying the good and forbidding evil. Huh? Enjoying the good and forbidding evil. Giving dawah. Teaching people and so on and so forth. Also from action. What are the things from actions? Salah. Giving charity. Going to Hajj. And so on and so forth. From what are the things that are apparent from those actions? Apparent. What are the things that are apparent? Actions that are apparent. Feeding the poor. Salah. And doing good that people good that you can see. What are the hidden things hidden from those actions that Allah would love? Yeah, seeking Allah for worship, having sincerity for Allah, loving for the sake of Allah, hating for the sake of Allah. A person having sincerity for Allah, not showing off, or not so on. These are hidden actions. Loving the believers, believing in Allah, and so on and so forth like that. So the Shaykh this is a definition of La ilaha illallah. So the Shaykh mentioned the statement of this in Surah Al-Dhariyat, the first evidence that he mentioned for the obligation, the why Allah must be worshipped alone. Allah said in Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 56, Allah says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Allah said, I have not created mankind and the jinn except that they worship me alone. Except that they worship me alone. The Shaykh explained in this verse. He says, Allah informs us in this verse. In Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 56, Allah informs us in this verse that He created mankind and jinn only to worship Him alone. The Shaykh says that this verse, in it is the wisdom why Allah created creation. In this verse is the wisdom of our creation. He said, the Shaykh says, Allah does not want from them. Right? Allah is our master. Allah is our creator. He's a sustainer. Say, Allah does not want from us what some leaders or those government people, what they usually want from other people, right? When a person is in charge of the country or is a leader of the people, when he asks something from them, usually it's something that benefits him, right? But what Allah asks from us is something that benefits us. Worshiping Allah does not benefit Allah. It does not benefit Allah. But what Allah asks from us is to benefit us. So the Shaykh says that in this chapter, by Allah creating us, by Allah mentioning this verse that He only created to worship, this shows that it's an obligation. It's an obligation that we worship Him alone. The Shaykh also mentioned the benefit from this verse in verse Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse 56. It says, in this verse is the obligation upon the human beings and the jinn to worship Him alone. And it mentioned the wisdom of creating them. What is the wisdom of Allah mentioned for creating us? To worship Him alone. Jazakallah khair. For worship Him alone, this is the wisdom behind that. And the third benefit the Shaykh brought from this verse, he says that that the Creator is the one that deserves worship, not other than Him. That the Creator is the one that deserves worship, because He's the Creator, He's the provider, He's the sustainer. The Shaykh said in this verse is a refutation of those who worship idols. It's a refutation upon those who worship idols and other than the idols. Those who worship idols and other than Allah. Because those things, they didn't create nothing. So why people worship them? Type. So the Sheikh mentioned another verse. Another verse in Surah Al-Nahl. Surah Al-Nahl, which is the chapter of Nahl, of bees. Verse 36. The Sheikh mentioned almost 5 or 6 verses to prove the obligation why Allah should worship alone. So this is the second one. We're going to go to about 5 or 6 of them from the Quran, and there are 2 or 3 of them from the Sunnah, and that's the end of the chapter. So we're going to the second chapter now. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned something in verse 36. He says that وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. Allah said, and we have sent a messenger, and indeed we have sent a messenger to every nation, that they worship Allah, and that they worship and they abandon Taghut. Allah said, and we send a messenger to every nation, that to tell the people that they worship Allah and to stay away from Taghut. The Sheikh mentioned that every nation means that every generation that came before. Every generation and group of people that came before, this is what's by Ummah. And Allah mentioned in another verse that there's no nation that passed in the past, except there is a one amongst them telling them to worship Allah and to stay away from idols. So the Sheikh, he mentioned the meaning of Taghut. The meaning of Taghut is everything that is worshipped besides Allah. Everything that is worshipped besides Allah. Ibn Qayyim, rahimahullah, he gives a beautiful definition of Taghut. And a lot of people don't think of worship from that. They don't look at worship. And in this definition, he described Taghut, which makes clarify for us what the meaning of worship. He said, everything, Taghut means everything that causes a person to cross the bounds that Allah has set forth. Everything that causes a person to cross the bound that Allah has set. Either a person worships that thing, either a person is obeying that thing, and either a person is following that thing. So these are the 3 things that he mentioned in the definition.
Who is this that mentioned?
Ibn Qayyim. He says that everything that causes a person to disobey Allah, by a person worshipping that thing or obeying that thing or following that thing. So for example, a person who, for example, who takes money, let's use money for example, that he for example, something like 50 Cent, for example, he said, get rich or die trying. He said that, right? Get rich or die trying. Right? So, he's essentially following money. He will do anything for money. Right? right? That money's become that thing that they worship besides Allah. Why? Because money is that thing that is following. It's the focus. And it causes him to disobey Allah Azza wa Jal. It causes him to disobey Allah. Also, those who are calling to the disobedience of Allah, whether it is LGBTQ or those who are calling to the MMA and those things like that, they are calling to the obedience of Allah. They're calling away from the obedience of Allah, right? So those things, they are taghut. Because why? They are causing the people to exceed the bounds that Allah set for the creation. They are calling away. They say, come and do it. Come to this way. Allah is calling to that way. They are calling to the opposite of it. Right? And they are pleased with that. So he said, this is me of taghut. So he says, so Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned in this verse, verse 36, that He did not send a messenger to every nation that came before, telling them that they worship Him alone. Remember we mentioned that the worship of Allah is everything Allah loves and is pleased with, from what is apparent and what is hidden, right? Allah sent the messengers telling the messenger to tell the nations that to worship Him and to abandon taghut, all those things that are calling away from His worship. To stay from things that are calling away, to disobey those things that are calling away from His worship. So the Shaykh, he says that he sent a messenger to the nation that came before, calling them to worship Allah alone and to abandon other than Him. Right. So the Shaykh now, he mentioned the benefit from this verse. He says that حَنَّ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنَّ مِنْ رَسَالِ الرَّسُولِ يَدُ إِلَى التَّوْحِيدِ وَالنَّهْيِ عَنِ الشِّرْكِ. He said the wisdom in this verse is that the reason for sending the messengers is to call the people to Tawheed, to call the people to worship Allah alone, and to call them away from things that contradict the worship of Allah. Things that contradict the worship of Allah. Or those things that are calling from away from the worship of Allah. Or any people or anything that are calling them from worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. The Shaykh said from the benefit of this verse is that the religion of the Prophet is one. That because, and what is the point here? What is the point the Shaykh mentioned there? Right? The Shaykh says that the religion of the Prophet is one. They're all of Muslim now. They're all Muslims. They preach Islam. Yes. Anything else? They call to La ilaha illallah. And more specifically, Shaykh means that Allah tell them that they worship Allah alone, all of them, and to stay away from taghut, all those things that cause away from the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. He says in this verse also shows the obligation of Tawheed. Why Tawheed is important? Why? Because this is what Allah sent all the messengers with. This is the call of all the messengers. It shows how great Tawheed is. That's how great Tawheed is. That Tawheed is connected to all nations that came before. The prophets, all their religion are the same. They may have something different here and there, right? They may allow some things, eat, you can eat this in this legislation, but you can't eat this in the legislation. But all of them revolves around worshiping Allah alone. I mean, obeying Allah and stay away from disobedience of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Then the Shaykh mentioned, inshallah, we're trying to finish the chapter some of this we've heard them before, right? But we want to,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? We want to try to move inshallah forward. So the third evidence the Sheikh brought in Surah Al-Isra showing the obligation of worshiping Allah alone is in Surah Al-Isra, verse 23. Verse 23. Now, verse 23. Allah said in verse 23 of Surah Al-Isra, and Allah ordained that you worship none but Allah and to be good to your parents.
So 33.
Yes, Isra, verse 33. And Allah ordained or decreed that you worship none but Allah and that you be good to your parents. So the Sheikh Fawzan Hafizahullah, he said that there are two types of ordainment here, or there are two types of decree. There's two types of decree here. The decree that is connected to worldly affairs, to the worldly things. The worldly decree, meaning that the decree that Allah lets things happen. Allah let this one die today. Allah let this one be born today. Allah let this one go to jail today. Allah let this rain today. All right? This is the worldly decree. And the second type of decree is the decree of the Islamic decree. Allah decree, and this is what this chapter is connected to. The decree that Allah decree that we worship Him alone. Allah decree that we worship Him alone. Allah decree that we make salah. Allah that decree that we give zakat. Allah decree that we make hajj. Allah decree that we go to our parents. This is our Islamic decree. The first decree, no one can disobey Allah in this first decree. Right? There's no way disobeying Allah. Everybody's going to die. Right? All of us were born. But it is by the decree of Allah that we're born. It's by that first decree is under the will of Allah. Whatever Allah wills will happen. What Allah does not will not happen. But the second type of will, as the scholar mentioned, is that will is Allah leave that to whoever wants to obey Him. Right? Allah leave the second one to whoever will obey Him. Right? If you want to pray, you can pray. If you want to believe in Allah, you can believe in Allah. Right? But there's a punishment for that. There's punishment. Right? So the second type of decree, Allah leave the option open to those. Allah leave them want to believe. But just because Allah leave that as an open, as a decree, is that it doesn't mean that there's no punishment for disobeying. So Shaykh continues. He says, and the meaning of your Lord, the meaning of Lord means, what is the meaning of Lord? What do we understand with Lord? Rabb, yes, Rabb, yes. But what is the really Rabb? Lord in Arabic means Rabb, yes. But what is the definition of, what do we understand by Lord in English? The one that's in charge. Okay, Tayyip, yes. The one that's in charge. Yes, the one in charge. Yes. The Shaykh said the meaning of Rabb, the meaning of Lord, is the Malik, the owner. Al-Mutasarrif, the one that runs the affairs. The one that nurtures and provides for all of the creations from His bounties. This is meaning of Rabb. Meaning that the owner, the king, the one that runs the affairs, and the one that bestows blessings to all the creations from His bounties. Then, Then the Sheikh says, Allah said that will worship Him alone and do not make partner with Him. It does not benefit a person to worship Allah and to worship besides Allah. It does not benefit. It's as if a person does not worship Allah. If a person worship Allah, then he worship besides Allah. For example, he worship Allah, but he goes and do magic. It's as if that a person does not worship Allah at all. Subhanallah. That's why Tawheed is very important. A lot of the Muslims, they are not aware of this. They think that as long as I say La ilaha illallah, and I pray my salah, and I fast, and so on and so forth, that is good for me. But they are not paying attention to those things that negates that. Right? That negates that. And Sheikh Muhammad Abu Wahab, he gives a beautiful example. Right? In the 4 principles, where he mentioned, he says, if a person make a wudu, if a man make wudu, and he passes gas, right? His wudu has been nullified. That is the same thing as shirk to a person's tawheed, I suppose, as a Muslim. If a person is a Muslim, he took his shahada. But now he does something. He believes in magic. Or he believes in one of those things that can nullify Islam. Now those things that nullify Islam, it's as if that it's not a Muslim and he wipes it out. This is how, if a person makes wudu and it passes gas and it goes to the bathroom, his wudu has been nullified. That's why this issue is very, very important that we understand it. So the Sheikh, it continues. He says that walidain, and to be good to our parents. To be good to our parents. That Allah decreed that we go to our parents. And this is from the first decree or the second decree? I want to see who remember. The second? Yes, it's from the second decree down. It's from remember the first decree, we mentioned the decree of the worldly decree of Allah. Right? Nobody can avoid that. This is in the second decree, the Islamic decree. You see, Allah left it to whoever wants to do it. So being good to our parents is for the second decree. And he says that, what does it mean to be good to our parents? It means to be good to them in our speech, in our actions. Right? Even if they are disbelievers. Even though if they are disbelievers. And not to be mean to them, as we see nowadays. Right? People are rude to their parents. SubhanAllah. There was a video that came up on YouTube. A person, when I started, said, was dragging his mother by her hair. Dragging her. Yeah. SubhanAllah. Yeah. You're fine. Some for people, they call their mother B. B word. Yeah. Kill their mother. Zakallah khair. The people kill their mother. Right? And so on and so forth. Cursing their mother out. This is from the beauty of Islam. Right? So Allah Azza wa Jal, after He commands them to worship Him alone, He commands us to be good to our parents. The Sheikh mentioned, you want to see that? You want to sit? Yeah, sit on the chair, inshallah. If you want to sit, inshallah. So he said, from this importance of this verse to this chapter we are discussing, is that from the greatest of obligation is that we worship Allah alone. Because this verse indicates, and decree means that, the word decree means Allah commands. The word decree, even though it's the word ordain, there's a command there. Right? It's command. The word now mean qada, and it has several meanings. It means to decree, just like here as well too, right? In the court system, they use the word decree. It doesn't mean that it means an obligation, right? It means you have to. It's obligation that you do that thing. And if you break it, you are in trouble. So he says that in this verse shows the obligation that we worship Allah alone. And also, from this verse shows that the obligation, the right of the parents is tremendous. Because Allah mentioned it after his right. After the right of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah mentioned the right of the parent right away. And the Sheikh mentioned that is because the parents are the one, while a person is weak, the parents or the mothers specifically, even though both of them are for the parents, if the father is working and providing for the family, and the mother is taking care of the child, that during the stage of the person being weak and not having the ability, the parent take care of the child to the extent that to the point that the child becomes strong and have the ability to take care of himself. So they only deserve the right for them to be repaid back for what they did. Now, so the Shaykh continues. He says, moving on. And also he mentioned also that from this is haram to be not good to the parents. It's in this verse. Because when Allah mentioned something that is obligation, then it means that opposing it is not permissible. It's haram. So the Shaykh continues to the third. Third evidence from Surah An-Nisa, verse 30, verse 36, Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of women. Allah said, وَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِشَيْئًا. Allah said, worship Allah and do not make partners with him. Worship Allah. The Shaykh says that Allah said in this verse that we worship him alone and stay away from any worship, anything being worshipped besides him. Because Allah, the word here is shay'a. The word shay'a means nothing. Worship Allah and do not associate nothing in partner with Allah. So here, Shaykh says that Allah negates all type of worship from other than him. Allah make impermissible any type of worship to be given to other than him. From whether it's salah, or whether it's dua, whether all kind of worship. And like we mentioned, we're going to come to, we're still in the beginning phase. This book is tremendous. We're going to go to details, some of the type of worship that we may not even know they are worship, that we're going to go into. We have 67 or so chapters, inshallah. So he said, so this verse shows negating, affirming worship for Allah alone and giving worship to other Allah Azza wa Jal. Now the Shaykh continues to mention another verse from Surah Al-Dhariyat. Surah Al-Dhariyat. Surah Al-An'am. Surah Al-An'am, verse 151 to 153. Verse 151 to 453. So far we have mentioned about four verses from different chapters, all of them indicating the obligation of worshiping Allah alone. So we can go back and review them. So the verse that the verse that we're talking about now is Surah Al-An'am, verse 151 to 153. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, قُلْ تَعَالُوا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said, say to them, Muhammad, come on. In Surah Al-An'am, verse 151 to 153. 151 to 153. Allah Azza wa Jal said to Prophet ﷺ, tell him to come on. Tell him to come on. He said, tell him to come. And I will tell you what your Lord has prohibited you from. I will tell you what your Lord has made haram for you. And the first of them is not to make partners with him. And in this verse, from verse 151 to 153, Allah mentioned 10 things. The scholars call this, they call it the 10 rights. So in Surah Al-An'am, verse 151 to 153, Allah mentioned 10 rights. And the first thing Allah mentioned, if you will, you can call 10 commandments. Right? Allah mentioned 10 things. And the first thing Allah Azza wa Jalla started with. And just like in the Bible, right? The first thing Allah is mentioned is what? That your Lord, or children of Israel, right? Your Lord is one. Same thing like them. Huh? Alaykum salam to Allah. The same thing like them. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned 10 things. And from the first one of them is that not to make partners with Him. That's the first thing. And the second thing Allah mentioned is what? Who can guess what it is? Who can guess the second time Allah mentioned in this verse what we mentioned? There was second right. You go to the parent. That's the second right. Allah mentioned in many places in the Quran, just like we mentioned in the other many places in the Quran, when Allah mentioned the rights is right, He will mention the rights of the parent right after that. Mention the right of the parent right after that. So the right of the parent is the second right. Be to go to the parents, not harming them, not be disrespecting them, taking care of them, and so on and so forth. And the third right Allah mentioned in this Surah Al-An'am, from verse 151 to 153, is that a person should not kill their children due to poverty. Due to poverty. Due to poverty. And it happens nowadays. People abort the children. Why? Because they feel like, I cannot take care of the child. Right? So Allah warned against this. This shows the obligation of not aborting children. Allah mentioned, we take care of you and them. Right? Allah mentioned that we take care of you. نحن نرزق وإياه. نحن نرزقكم وإياهم. We provide for you and your children. So Allah said, don't kill your children. That's the third thing. The fourth thing, and he's not to be close to fawahish, not close to be sins and fornication. Do not be close to sins. We ask Allah to forgive us. Ameen. We are in an environment where desires cause us. Alright. So Allah in this number 4, Allah not to even get close to sins, whether it's apparent and whether it's hidden. Apparent sins, apparent things. And from those sins are the things that we see. Especially nowadays. People are almost naked. Right? And it's all over the place. Allah commands us to lower our gaze. And when we should try, we should work hard. We should draw our best to lower our gaze. But human beings are created weak, as Allah mentioned. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانَ ضَعِيفًا. Indeed, we created human being weak. So, but we try, we make effort to lower our gaze. We try to obey Allah Azza wa Jal. So the fifth thing is Allah commands not to kill what Allah has made haram. Not to kill one another. We live in times where taking life is cheap. People kill people for no reason. Huh? People kill people for no reason. Even some of the Muslims too. They do it too. So in this, Allah make haram to kill people for no reason. The 16, Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal is to not get close to the money or the property of the offering. Sometimes we have, child of our uncle or our aunts or our brothers and sisters, and we are the only one that's left, and the child may be young, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla said that we should not rip the children off of their wealth. And if we are able to do it, we can help them invest or take care of the property so that when they get to old age, they can benefit from it. And Allah mentioned another place that if it's a person, if you have to take something of their wealth, you have to be in need, but you have to eat. As Allah mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, you can only take a little bit from it, from their wealth, if you are taking care of for them. But if you are rich, you are prohibited from touching the wealth of the orphan. And the 7th one is to weigh with justice. And when we buy and sell, when we do work, we ask Allah to forgive us. I mean, sometimes you say oil to a brother, but you mix the oil with something that's not right. Alright? Or you do a work for a brother, alright, and you change them. Or maybe you're selling some products, but you don't give them the full rights. This fall into that. And number 9. No, sorry, number 8. Number 8. No, you're right. Number 8. Number 8. Number 9. Allah is that Allah has. We're number 8? So that was number 8. Okay, number 9.
No, you said number 7.
Oh, sorry, number 10. To wait, yeah, to wait. Yes, that's number 8 now. Is when you speak with justice. When you speak with justice. وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَعَدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. And then when you speak with justice, even if a close relative is connected. Sometimes because we have our family members, and maybe they are the one that's wrong, right? And you will still defend them, right? And we don't speak the word of truth, right? Oh, if it's my boy, and he's the one that's wrong. Maybe he's the one. You don't speak the truth because it's your boy. Allah Azza wa Jalla, that when you speak with justice, even though a relative is connected. And number 9, and Allah says that you obey Him. Allah commands us to yield, to submit to His commands, subhanahu wa ta'ala. To submit to His commands. And to submit to His sunnah of His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then the number 10 is, Allah said that this is my straight path, but follow it. That everything that I've mentioned, this is my straight path. This is my straight, then follow it. And do not follow any other path besides it. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned hadith, or one of the companions mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ draw a line. Then he draw lines to the left of this line. Prophet ﷺ draw a straight line. Then he draw some lines next to it. He said, "Hada sabilillah." He said, "This is the path of Allah. The path of Allah is straight." He says, and he mentioned all this path that's next to it, the path of shaitan. The shaitan calling to it. And this is connected to the verse. In this verse, when the scholars, when they mention this verse, they will mention the hadith connected to it. So Allah says that this is my straight path, so follow it. And do not follow any other path besides it, or else it will lead you away from the path of Allah. This other path, if you follow it, it will lead you to the path of Allah. It's like a person driving on the highway, and you get off the wrong exit. And sometimes it may take you a while to get back to the path, the word that you initially got off from. Tayyib. So the Shaykh, so these are the 10 things that the Shaykh mentioned. And inshallah, I think we should stop there. And if the brothers are going to come, we can do it tomorrow. Is it possible for a brother to come? I'm free tomorrow after Maghrib. Is it possible for the brothers to come?
Yeah.
If we can come, if brothers can come, based on who's going to come, if you can come now, I'm thinking if the brother can come, we can make it consistent. Maybe try to do almost every day. In this day I can make it, I would say that I can make it. But for now, we can, inshallah, to make it consistent, inshallah. The brother's going to come, inshallah, after Maghrib. So we stop there, inshallah. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.